Hey everybody, this is Nick Baldwin, and today I'm being joined by Bellator heavyweight contender Tim Johnson, who is set to take on Valentin Moldavsky for the Bellator interim heavyweight title in the main event of Bellator 261 on June 25th. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's been a while, so appreciate you taking the time. And obviously, this is big news for you. Getting your first shot at a belt in a major organization. When did you find out that you would be fighting for the interim heavyweight title next month?
I guess kind of everything got solidified probably about 2 weeks ago on our end. Kind of went back and forth on dates and whatnot, and honestly, it was kind of the only week that it was gonna. The only way the fight was gonna happen for me was June. I got military obligations that I have happening in July. And yeah, so I kind of was pushing for June, and they made it happen.
And for the past 2 weeks or so, we only found out that the fight was booked on Friday. I know Scott Coker said that you would be part of an interim heavyweight title fight the day before that. But all along, you've known it was going to be Moldavsky?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much from the get-go.
How did you react to the news, first of all?
I was it was kind of what I was expecting. Me and Bader, we had like a gentleman's agreement at the beginning of the year. We went back and forth on social media actually, and we're kind of like, hey, let's make this fight happen in February, March. And so I was expecting to fight then, and then he joined the light heavyweight tournament. Not a chance for $1 million, get his belt back, and I can't hate him for that. I would have done the exact same thing. In doing so, I kind of let the heavyweight class in a little bit of limbo. Unfortunately, my success put me to the top there, so I couldn't. I was kind of handcuffed until they kind of came up with this interim idea, and I was more than happy to accept that. Otherwise, I would be sitting around getting older and aging on the couch rather than aging in the cage.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, it feels like this is a long time coming, them doing something about the fact that Ryan Bader hasn't defended for coming up to 2 years in this September. Are you surprised how long it took Bellator to introduce an interim title or do something?
I think they were initially waiting to see how he did against Machida. If he was if the fight didn't go his way against Machida, we would have been turned around and it would have been me and him fight probably here this summer.
Is it at all frustrating over the past 2 years or 1.5 years? Just you've been at the top for a little while. You're on a 3-fight winning streak, and they're kind of just waiting for Bader, seeing what's happening. Is any of that frustrating for you as one of the top contenders in the division?
No, not initially. Because I wasn't really the top contender until I beat Check-in last October. So that's only 7 months ago still, I guess. Yeah, when you add it up, it seems like a while. But at the time, they were jockeying in all kinds of different directions and doing all kinds of different stuff. So at the time, yeah, I was right there in line, ready to go. So was Ryan, and then he had another opportunity that came his way. And you just gotta kind of adjust fire. And Bellator was pretty good about it. I right when they announced it, I was on the phone with my agent Ryan Butler, and I was like, "Hey, so what's this mean for me? What are we going to be doing?" And they were already pushing the idea of maybe having an interim title fight.
As far as Moldavsky being on the other side, was that the right opponent for this interim title fight?
As far
as you're concerned,
I believe it was. Moldavsky. And me and him actually, we've been scheduled to fight twice, and I had to pull out the first time for injury, and he had to pull out the second time for injury. So now it just seems like fate.
Yeah, I mean, looking at your Bellator record, it was a bit of a rough start when you signed with Bellator, 2 losses, but now you're on a 3-fight winning streak. Is this kind of what you envisioned all along when you left the UFC for Bellator? Is this kind of where you thought you would be, and not having those losses early on?
This is where I wanted that. I wanted a lot of people. Like I said it right away when I came over to Bellator, I signed right away. I still had aspirations, and expectations within myself to challenge for a belt eventually. I wasn't just coming in fighting, a couple times a year for a paycheck. I actually want to try to get something for my troubles. Now it's kind of coming together, and it's right on the doorstep. Just gotta you gotta keep on, keep chugging along.
Is it starting to feel like this move to Bellator is finally paying off?
I think the move to Bellator paid off many fights ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think led to this recent success after a bit of a rough patch early on in Bellator? Like, did anything click specifically that you can sort of pinpoint as to why you went from a couple losses to now clearly the number one contender, 3 straight wins, all that?
I think it's probably my move to Vegas, switching, getting out here to Xtreme Couture, where there's big bodies every day for you to train with. The top heavyweights in the world, walking to the doors every day. And, I'm a big proponent of iron sharpens iron. You're going to have a great coaching wherever you go, but it's all about the practice partners.
Can you expand on that a little bit in terms of what training in Vegas, as you said, training with some of the top heavyweights in the world, some of the top coaches, what has that done for your game and your skill set specifically?
Just keeps me honest. My first my first fight with Czech, so my very first fight in Bellator, I was still training up in Fargo, and that was a great gym up there, Academy of Combat Arts, and it got me through the UFC. And I had a lot of good heavyweights up there, but they kind of moved on. And that fight camp for Czech Congo, I think my main training partner was 185 pounds the whole time. It wasn't just the bodies anymore. So after that loss, pulled up shop and headed to Vegas for good, because I was coming out here a couple weeks out of every one of my fight camps. But I finally made the move. And at the same time, people, when they switch gyms, I think a lot of people want instant results. I just think it takes some time for the nutrition to set in. And, I think that's just kind of stuff just started clicking a little bit more for me.
Yeah. And you said you're training pretty much full time at Xtreme Couture, correct?
Yes, that I am.
Yeah, and Francis Ngannou is of course one of the top heavyweights there right now. I assume he's one of the main guys you work with.
I've worked with Francis for many years. He's been coming out here for a couple of years as well, and I've gotten a lot of rounds in with Francis. Fortunately, his black eyes from Latifi came in on him, and he caught me when I was shooting in. But yeah, Francis, Latifi, you got Carl, you got Vinny, you got Ronnie, you got I can think of on top of my head. Walt Harris is out here right now, getting a lot of work in with him. And he had Roy coming. Roy was kind of the reason, Roy and his wife Jess kind of kept pestering me to move out here for, they're like, hey, it's time to move out. So, I've gotten in with a lot of good bodies out here.
I mean, of course, a lot of big names, as you mentioned there, Latifi and Walt Harris and Marks and some other good guys. But the name there, right, that everyone thinks about right now is, of course, Ngannou. And we saw what he did to Stipe. He's the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. What does that do for your confidence and just for everything to train with the number one guy in the division right now, the baddest man on the planet?
Well, that's it. Like I've been saying that for the last year. The mindset is simple. Like, the hardest punches that I eat are in practice. They're not going to be in a fight. So if I can eat them in practice, then I'm good in the fight.
Yeah. And you said a minute ago that when you move gyms, it takes a little while to settle in. Can you expand on that? Like, how come? How do you have to sort of settle in? Like, what are the adjustments you have to make? And
it's just you're getting rid of bad habits, and that all takes time. Repetition, just like anything else. You're not going to be very good at disassembling an M4 just after doing it once. You got to do it once, twice, 300, 200, 300 times. The same thing. So you go to a new gym, new partners, new everything, new strategies, new looks on stuff. It just takes multiple times to get it over for it to start clicking naturally, rather than you thinking about it. It starts happening naturally.
Obviously, you're in a great spot career-wise right now. It seems like everything is clicking, and that's why you're in this Bellator interim heavyweight title fight. But if you don't mind, I do want to ask about sort of how you were feeling after those losses to Congo and Minikov. Like, did you have to sort of get past any sort of self-doubt? Like, obviously, fighters think they're the best, and when you lose, it's a bit of an eye-opening experience. So for your first two in Bellator to not go your way, how tough was that?
The first Czech was probably the worst. I had high expectations, high hopes for myself, and just kind of went out there and had a fluke. Had just I don't know what it was, honestly. And if I mean, I think probably maybe just a change of how everything operates with the check, like going to UFC, going through that thing, then switch over to Bellator is how all that works, and it's just kind of a little different. Minikop one. I'm chopping that up to you can't fight a guy like Minikop on 10 hours notice. That's a tough. That is one tough cat right there. So, but I went into that going, a fight's a fight. Anything can happen. But yeah, that's a guy that you definitely need to train for and actually game plan for a little bit. And so, the most of it was just check. The first check fight. Other than that, I guess you kind of I've said before in my my interviews after with Tyrell and Matt, and even I think Check too, is it's always just been a more of a, I know I can physically do it, it's just kind of sometimes I think I mentally get in my way.
Yeah, no, I actually completely forgot how short notice that Minikov fight. But as you said it, like I remembered. Can you remind me, like, what exactly happened? Were you on the card, or did you step in literally just, not even training?
I was on the card. I was supposed to be fighting Zhu.
That's right. Yes, Zhu Anian Wu.
Yeah, and like I woke up at like 10 in the morning to Brian calling me and say, "Hey, there's something going on here. Think you can step in?" I'm like, "Hold on, let me call around." Bunch of people are like, "Yeah, man, just do it." All right, so let's do it.
Where does that stand among sort of the, I don't know, it seemed like a difficult or daunting task, like stepping in against the former champion in 10 hours notice. Like, where does that stand among the toughest things you've attempted to do, I guess you could say?
I don't know. I think it's right up there. I think I was kind of just blind to it a little bit. They were like, this is because the Zune was going to be like, I think that was the last fight on my contract actually. So I was like, hey, making sure I get another fight after this. And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. So I kind of went in there a little too carefree about it all. I just wanted to go out there and try to knock, try to land a punch, knock him out. And I don't know. It was just kind of a freaky thing of events that hopefully doesn't happen again.
And if I remember correctly, that fight was initially supposed to be Moldavsky. So I don't know how long you were preparing for him. I don't remember exactly, but do you feel like you're pretty familiar with him at this point?
Yeah, I think so. That's another thing I changed out quite a bit. I used to never used to watch fighters' fights because I was like, you can only be in charge of what you do. And I always had my coaches kind of watch my opponents, and they could pick apart anything. But I started watching some more videos of guys' fights and kind of see how they move a little bit more and try to, pick apart their game a little bit. So I started doing that here with the Tyrell fight and moving forward. So I've actually started watching Moldovsky's fights now. So we'll see how it goes.
Is there any reason you started doing that? I know Eric Nixick is a huge guy. He's huge into watching tape. He does it all the time. What sort of made you think that, hey, this might be a good idea?
Something had to change. Couldn't. The other way was working 50% of the time. So I'm like, let's try switching it up. Ever evolving the game, my own MMA game, I guess, would be the way to put it.
What do you think watching tape has done for your preparation so far? Like, do you think, I clarify, but like for your last fight, did you sort of watch a lot more tape than usual, or now you're just starting for this fight?
No, for my last fight, ever since leading up to my Tyrell fight, I started watching the tape on him, then Matt, and then Check again. Watched my fight with him probably about 10 times and just was gross. And now I'm just kind of incorporating it into my fight camps a little bit more.
So preparation wise, what does that do? Like how more confident do you go into your fights, knowing exactly what your opponents are about? Like, what does that do for your preparation? You
can see what their not so much tendencies, but what they throw a lot of. But at the same time, it allows me go into the fight like I used to blindly. So I can do two things. I can expect what people throw the same things same combinations majority of the time. Then they throw in a little spice here and there. So it lets me know what he's most commonly going to throw, and still I, in the back of the head keep ready for those surprise stuff.
Okay. Obviously, for your first shot at a belt in either UFC or Bellator, a major organization, what would it mean for you, just your life and your career, to be the Bellator interim champion?
It's kind of like it's my thesis to get my doctorate of violence.
Is it kind of just like it makes it all worth it, or it shows you that you're doing the right thing? Like, what is that? Like? Yeah,
I think so. It's I get a lot of doubters, a lot of people, but I had people even close to me who doubted me, and to me, I'm like, go ahead and do it. To me, it's this last year and moving forward, it's just a giant middle finger to everyone who thinks I'm not capable.
Yeah. And I imagine, generally, if you're a fighter who goes from a non-champion to a champion, like, people will start paying attention, just in sense of, hey, they want to tune into your fight. So do you think your name just gets bigger from here too if you win the belt?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was definitely late to the game in that department. I think when I after my first UFC fight, went to a UFC summit, and they were doing all the social media stuff. I walked up there and they're like, "What's your social media account?" I'm like, "I have Facebook." And they kind of laughed at me. They're like, "Okay, well, you need to be doing all this kind of stuff." And at the time, I was just kind of, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm not about the internet world and all that type of stuff. So I kind of got a late start on that.
No, fair enough. As you mentioned earlier, Ryan Bader, the current heavyweight champion, is, of course, in the middle of the light heavyweight Grand Prix. He's fighting Corey Anderson at some point, probably coming up in the next couple months. And if he wins that, then he goes to the finals, and we don't know how long that'll take. Is that something you're thinking about, or you're worried at all, just how long Bader could still be locked up in this tournament?
No, not really. Right now, my main focus is just getting through Moldovsky. He's a tank, and he's a young tank. And yeah, he's that's the only thing on my mind. And I'm not really too worried about it. I'm actually going in the mindset that this is probably going to be my only fight this year if things go right, just because how everything's lining up with Ryan, like I said, the tournament. So I'm not pushing anything. I'm just kind of focused on this one fight, and everything goes right, and then go into 2022 and hopefully rattle out 3-4 fights that year.
Are you okay that it'll be your only fight? Not that you can really control that, but do you think you'll be content with just one fight in 2021?
I mean, that's just kind of how the cards laid up this year. Bellator, they kind of got to a late start on top of it. That didn't help anybody. I think they were kind of, because they were shopping around with like Showtime and all that type of stuff. So they didn't get started till, when was their first fight?
April, I think.
April, yeah. So that kind of threw a wrench in the gears for a lot of people. So I mean, there's a little bit of a pile up there. So I'm just happy to get a fight in. Get this done, get a win, come back, get my military schooling done, then go to this is my only fight. And that's fine. I'll go back and work at the fields there in the fall.
I wanted to ask you about that to end this. You mentioned earlier that you had some military obligations you had to take care of. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that, like, obviously I know in the past you've been part of the military, but is that a new thing or a fairly new thing right now?
Yeah, I actually after my Congo fight, I rejoined Minnesota Guard again in November. So in recent, I was always planning on going back because I had 10 years prior, and I was always planning to go back and get my 10. And I was kind of at the cusp where I needed to join. And if I didn't join, then I would have to go back to basic training. Well, I didn't really want to do that since I was going to rejoin again anyways. I just swallowed the pill and signed my name again. So I got to do some catch up on a couple of military schools. I was at NCO and whatnot. So so I'm kind of double dipping back and forth right now.
Very cool. Is that based in Nevada where you live, or do you have to go back home?
No, I go back to Minnesota.
Okay. Is it difficult at all to balance fighting, especially where you're at now, fighting for the belt and obviously your military obligations?
Not. I mean, down the line it might be. because that's kind of a little bit of the reason I got out the first time. Was just kind of seemed like they were colliding my fighting game or my fighting career and my military career were kind of colliding a little bit. But actually, I left Minnesota on March 1st, I think, and I was in Minneapolis until April 11th. I was down there for the Chauvin trial. So I didn't do too much training. I was there for I think like 7 weeks of like just kind of overnights watching the courthouse and whatnot. So it was kind of welcome back into the military, Tim.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, let's end it on this. June 25th, you're fighting Valentin Moldavsky for the Bellator interim heavyweight title. How do you think this fight plays out?
I'm never a predictions guy. A fight's a fight. Honestly, I think I'm geared. I'm getting ready for a 25-minute fight.
All right. Well, Tim, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it, and best of luck to you with training camp.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.